at times from a safety point of view. How far out did you go, and how did you know you were going to stay in touch with each other? Because you're hooting along as well. It's going pretty quick.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's good to start with Reedy. Before we left, did like a 200-kilometer solo downwinder, like a few weeks before we left. And then like in the film, I think I say it in the film, but I genuinely asked him, I was, why do you want to go do this trip after you've done like a big send like that? He was like, oh, I basically just had to do that so I didn't push you guys too hard, because now I've got that out of my system. I don't care if we go far each day. Like, and I was like, great, that's awesome. Thanks. Like, I'm glad that you've got it out of your system, Reedy. Because yeah, and it was probably good that he got it out of his system, because there were some days where they wanted to go further and we were like, no, we're coming in here, which yeah, I think as a collective turned out to be the right thing. But yeah, so safety wise, there's a podcast that I did with Reedy as we drove up to, so we literally were driving up to do the Desert Winds trip, sitting in the car. We recorded a podcast with Reedy talking about that long adventure he did. And I guess that's maybe the first time that really sort of, for me, sunk in like what we actually were going to do. The thing that really stuck with me is like, look, we might be 10 kilometers offshore. If something goes wrong 10 kilometers offshore, you have to be prepared to paddle in 10 kilometers. And that could take 4 or 5 hours. And it's just like, well, if you want to come do this, that's the mindset you've got to have. Hopefully nothing goes wrong. But if something goes wrong, you have to be ready to help yourself. That's just how it is, I guess. And I remember sitting there and being like, oh, right, okay, right. And then that's kind of like, you're just sort of like, well, we're in it now. Like, that's the mindset I'm going to adopt. So I guess that was almost the motto. And I think my take on it now, inherently anything like this has a bit of risk. So, quite a lot of risk associated with it.
Yeah.
But the important part is thinking about what the risks are, how likely they are, and are you willing to take that on? And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't do it. If you're sitting there going, I'm not prepared, or I don't think I can paddle in 10 Ks on my belly, like, then I would say you shouldn't go do that, because you're taking a risk that's like higher than, yeah. So I guess anyway, the risk, we took that on. Fortunately for us, nothing did go wrong, so we didn't ever have to do that. But yeah, I guess if the trip had got called short for something like that, we would have had to work it out. But yeah. And then on the staying together thing, that was pretty stressful at times, but we managed to keep it sight on all of each other, like basically all the time. I think there was one moment that I kind of lost sight of everyone for about 5 seconds. And those 5 seconds felt really long, really long. But you're just hyper conscious of it, because keeping sight of people was basically, it was almost like your lifeline. It's like, that's the thing you're hanging on to. And then other safety things. So I had a satellite phone with me. Yep. I haven't really mentioned my 2 other mates. So we tried to rope in a bunch of drivers and ended up with convincing my 2 mates, JB. They're both JBs actually, James Bennett and Jar Banfield. And I don't know if you've watched the film, and they
loved it.
Yeah, they come across. That's exactly who they are. That film, I feel like it impersonates them really well. They're just 2 really nice dudes. So it was awesome having them with us. But basically, they were tracking me. They could see my location every 7 minutes. The thing would send location to them. None of the other guys had that, but they had phones. And the concept was that we'd all stay together. I think if I was going to do another trip like this, I'd just say like everyone's got to have one of them, because that was probably the biggest safety thing. It had like a button on it you could hit and it would automatically, it's the same thing as an EPIRB. We had EPIRBs as well, but it was that was a really good safety measure. And if I was doing something like this again, you'd go, everyone just has one of them. And then we probably all would have been so much safer.